Welcome to the Leader's Edge, where we celebrate leadership and shine a light on the visionary leaders that are shaping the future. I'm HR Huntsman. I'm the founder of Leader's Edge, creator of the Leader's Edge Performance Engine and Leader's Edge University. I'm thrilled to bring you stories from leaders who are making a difference around the world. In each episode, we champion the innovative strategies, courageous decisions, and inspiring journeys of those who lead with purpose and passion. So, whether you're looking to refine your leadership skills or you simply want to be inspired, this is the right place. Today's show is very special to me. You're going to get to meet a man very important to me in my life. His name is Jerry Korum. Jerry has been a mentor and friend of mine for over 30 years. He's incredibly successful with his car dealerships and his real estate empire, and it's all built on his incredible authenticity and true love for people. Jerry is the greatest connector I know and always makes anyone in his presence feel special. So let's jump into my conversation with my good friend, Jerry Korum. Jerry, thank you so much for joining me today. It's an honor to have you as a guest on my show.
It's an honor to be on your show, HR. We've known each other for a long time and it's always wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. I have been looking forward to this. I have lots of guests on my show, but this one is very special to me. Jerry, you and I go way back 30 years, if you can believe it or not.
We do.
Incredible. So I met Jerry. The first time we met was at a dinner for the YMCA. I was on the board at the YMCA named after your father, as a matter of fact. And there was a board dinner at Ray Dowley's house. And you and I just happened to sit down at the same table eating spaghetti. And here we are 30 years later.
I recall that very well.
So, one of my first questions is I was 29 at the time, just beginning my first organization. And I've watched you over those 30 years invest yourself in the lives of young people like myself. I'm not young anymore, but young people. I guess I want to know what drives you to invest in young people in our community. Where'd that come from?
Oh, I just think I had a rough start in life. It felt father and he had a very strange relationship. He wanted performance and I had dyslexia back in the 50s. And if you were a kid with dyslexia, you were just a dumb kid. There was no such thing as dyslexia or that had not been discovered. And now fast forward when I had children, my daughter, Sonia, second daughter, had dyslexia. So we were well aware of what dyslexia is. And so we knew that we could find different help from different people, whether it be an eye doctor or the University of Washington or different places. So we enrolled her in lots of places. And so when she would come home with a D or a C minus, we'd celebrate. So,
Mm.
but anyway, so when I started selling cars later on in at 20 years old for my father at a Dodge dealership that he owned in Puyallup, Washington, well, I could perform. I sold a couple of cars the first day, and I said, you know what? I'm not too dumb a kid. I could sell two cars in one day. What could I ever do if I learned this business a little bit? So that first day, January the 5th, 1963, I
Wow.
made a decision. I was going to be in the car business and make that my profession and let it be all it could be for me. And I was going to learn that well, and I poured my life into it from that day on.
Yeah, you did. So I've watched you invest in business people like me and pour yourself into our community. I like to go back to those early days in business. And one of the things I'd like to get from you in our conversation today are keys to sustained excellence. Like you began that in 1963, your own professional career, and here you are 50, 60 years later. What are the keys to sustained excellence?
I think several things come to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is to be a lifelong learner. And sometimes people get knocked around for a while when they're getting their first and second and third jobs. And just so happens I found something that I knew and thought I could do early in life. And after that first day of selling automobiles, which I never considered before that day, and I don't know why, because I had great success buying and selling cars through high school, old cars, and fix them up a little bit and sell them.
Mhm.
But I think it's a decision, and I love working with young people to talk about success, about the dream, about what could be. And I always say start off with a clean piece of paper and write on the top of it, what do I want? And I think that most people don't take the time to really sit back and give themselves the time to think. And I truly believe that's the most important time that an individual can give themselves as a gift, the gift of time. Just get someplace where it's quiet, no phones, no kids, no radios, no noise, and just think and have a piece of paper out there. What could be? The day after I sold those two cars on January 5th, 1963, I went to solitude for a whole day down by the river in Ording. And I just took that paper, I wrote down what could be. If I could sell two cars in one day, not having a clue what I'm doing, what could it be if I learned this business a little bit? What would it take to learn? I would look at the other three salespeople that I worked with, and they would be there with their coffee cup, or they'd be there with their cigarette. And they'd say, I wonder if anybody's going to come in today. And I thought, if I have to do that, I'll go goofy. So I made a decision that I was going to be busy. If I'm going to come to work, I'm going to come to work. I'm not going to come to work to wait. That's the first thing I discovered. People that come to work to wait, they're not going to make it. People that do come to work, if they have a plan, and a plan is the whole key, I think, not only success for a job, but for life. And that fits into your family, your career, your kids, your future, your health, your well-being, and everything else. But so I think that taking the time to think is one of the biggest traits, or one of the biggest takeaways for today that I can offer anybody. What do I want? And that to be pretty broad. And you start narrowing that down to what do I want? And there's no bad ideas. You start writing them down, what it is. Pretty soon,
Yeah.
within an hour, you got probably 50 words of what you want in life. I want to own a home. I want to own a car. I want a retirement. I want kids. I want a family. Whatever that desires and dreams that an individual would have. It starts, I think, with solitude time.
Okay. And I know you live this out.
I do.
And to my listeners, I want to share that Jerry practices what he preaches when he talked about being a lifelong learner. A few years ago, I was given a keynote talk at Pacific Lutheran University, PLU, near us. I invited Jerry to be a guest. He's my mentor and friend. And here's Jerry, who's forgotten more about leadership and success than I'll ever know. And he's sitting in the front row as I'm giving this talk to several hundred college graduates. And there he is. He's the only one in the whole room taking notes, as though he could learn anything from me. And that was, and I tell that story quite a bit, that here's a mentor of mine, a very successful businessman who is in front row taking notes. What are you still learning?
I think I'm still learning a lot. I've had a great career or I wouldn't be on this program with you, HR, but I had 54 years, 59 years in the car business. 59 years I owned, or for 59 years I've been in the car business. 54 years I've been a dealer or an owner. I bought Moreland Ford in Puyallup in 1960, April 1st, 1968, and just retired here 2 years ago. But the opportunity is all around us. And I think when we find something that looks something that interesting, then we ought to pursue it. And that has taken me into real estate in a significant way. It's taken me into another realm of business called lending. I lend money to contractors and lend money to different people on various properties. And that took quite a bit of learning and self discovery to get that going. But I just think life is out there to be lived. And right now, what I enjoy doing is things like this that you and I are doing today. I enjoy young people where I can help to mentor them and talk to them and help
Yeah.
them get going in life. I have a foundation that my wife and I started 30 some years ago. It's called Korum for Kids Foundation. And that foundation today is a very worthy foundation. So we give away significant amount of money per year. And that's been very rewarding to me as far as this stage of my life here, being in my 80s.
Yeah. I was going to bring up Corn for Kids in a little bit, so I'm going to set that on the shelf. I want to talk about that for sure. You're giving back to the community in so many ways. When I watch you, Jerry, there's almost a dichotomy about you. And I want to know how you put these two things together. On one side, you are easygoing, and it's like you move easily through life and success and conversations, and you take time with people. I've been out to lunch with you more times than I can count, and people will come up to you and, hey, Jerry, how you doing? And you always take time with them. On the other side of you, there is this continued drive to learn and succeed. How do those two things live together in you?
I found my faith here through a man in Tacoma, Fulton Buntain, and one of the first things he gave me some principles of Jesus, and I never forgot. One of the principles was Jesus. One of his strong traits that he had was walking slowly through the crowd.
Yeah.
So I asked Fulton Buntain, so what's that really mean, walking slowly through the crowd? And so he really got inside my head at that particular day, which he did many days to try to explain things to me in such a significant way, the only way that he seemed to have had. Just walking slowly through the crowd. And that's taking a moment to you don't have to rush through a meeting, or you don't have to rush through life, or you don't have to rush through the day. Just let it come as it comes and so forth. And listen. And I think that you talked about me taking a note taker. I think I had made probably, I don't know how many notes today, but several pieces of paper. Then I'll go consolidate those and work through those tonight and put them all for tomorrow. But
Yeah.
I think walking slowly through the crowd has always been significant to me for the last, since I met Fulton Buntain in 1985. And just I keep that in my mind often, walking slowly through the crowd and
Yeah.
taking the time. And anytime I take time with people, I'm the one that learns. I love to learn. And we talk about still being a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
That's fun for me. I enjoy people. I love people. And I love to get inside here with them. And my wife used to say, Jerry, you tonight we went to that event and everything about there is to know about all of those 40 guests. You know what? They don't know one thing about you. And I'd say it's fine. But anyway, that's I enjoy people. And I think that when we take the time to get
Yeah.
to know people on their level, then great things show up.
It's interesting as I hang around business leaders all the time, all day, every day. And there is a conception, and you're saying a myth, that success means grinding and pushing and striving and pressing. And I watch you move slowly through the crowd, as you say, and that's exactly how you operate. And yet that's very successful for you as you connect. You don't have to have that grind. Like, you're fully present in each moment. I think that's a key to your success. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I thank you for that observation.
Yeah. Another thing that I watch you do, you talk about the notes that you've taken today. Anytime I'm out with you, you have in your breast pocket there, somewhere in your jacket, you are old school. Like, you have your to-do list. And how are you going to show us? Yeah. So tell us how you organize your day. You're highly organized. How do you organize a life to make sure it's successful?
Oh boy, I think it comes with time. It comes with learning. It comes with consistency. I take a lot of notes through the day and just who I met with. And when I get home at nighttime, usually I'll put in this little thing called an iPhone. I'll look up their name and I'll put a note underneath there of what we talked about, the date. It's just simple. And it's amazing that with over 2,400 people in this phone here, I pick up the phone. I try to send out 3 texts per day, and I'll say,
Okay.
how's Millie, their dog or whatever. And people
Yeah.
don't ever forget that. And I enjoy doing it. And it's sincere besides that. But
Yeah.
I just think that note taking has always been if my mother was here, she would tell you that I would start taking notes as a little kid when I was 10, 11 years old. And I'd write those notes and keep writing and writing what I'd like to have for Christmas, or when I was selling apples and lemonade in front of our house, that I was saving money for a bicycle, or I was saving money for a stiletto jacket, or the different things that I wanted to have and so forth. And so I think note taking is, to me, has been a great part of my life. And it helps me remember. And when I particularly record it someplace, if that's necessary, or if my head tells me to do it, then it generally works pretty well.
Yeah. How much of your success would you say is your own business brilliance, and how much of it is this passion for connection? ABC, always be connecting. You're the greatest connector I've ever experienced in my life.
Thank you. But I think that in life, for life, my life, I think that relationships has been the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I started selling cars, January 5th, 1963, I went to the river, like I told you, and I sat there for the day. And I said, I'm going to come to work. I'm not going to come to work to wait like the other three salesmen.
That's good.
I wrote down everybody that I could think about that would even know my name. Everybody I went to grade school, there's still a few left at that time. Everybody I went to high school with that I might remember their name or they might remember me. The first thing I did pick up the phone. I'm Jerry. Korum, remember me? Yeah, I remember you. Well, I'm selling cars now. I want to be your car dealer for life. Not for today, not for tomorrow, not for the month, not one time, but I want to be your car dealer for life. I'm going to be in this for life. So you count on me. I'm here. How often you trade? And I had great success doing that on that first week. But after that, the phone started ringing for me. Second thing I think that has always worked for me is a big C word called creativity. And I remember buying a box. I bought a whole carton of matches that just said "See Jerry Korum" for the car dealer that really knows how to sell or something like that. Thornwall 56641. And I go down to the merchants in Puyallup and I pass them out. And it didn't do much the first time, but the next week when I passed them all out, they say, "Free matches? Put them here." Everybody smoked in.
Yeah.
So pretty soon, the second time, hey, he needs a car. I remember they said, my cousin needs a car and he's a farmer out in Ording. I drove, I said, well, I know Ording well. I go out there by the river. That's my place to go. I just took a truck and drove out to him. There he was in his farm, and he's been a friend of mine for life, Kenny Schultz, for life.
So we are all in sales. Maybe you may not even recognize, but every one of us is in sales, even if we don't have a sales position.
Everybody.
Everybody's in sales. We're trying to influence our spouse or teach our kids or make a sale or move our department. Everybody's in sales. If we think of sales as influencing somebody in a particular direction, what are some of the keys to influence and moving people?
Like I say, not everybody only is in sales, but everybody's in leadership. They're leading their family, they're leading their neighborhoods, they're leading their churches, they're leading themselves. Most
Yeah,
importantly,
good.
leadership. I think the word leadership and or what you just alluded to there is what was the word used? Sales. Everybody's in
Sales.
sales.
Yeah.
Then if somebody again will take that solitude time to think about themselves as sales or leadership. And what would that mean to them? What's a good leader look like to them or a good salesperson look like to them? Again, it would be taking the time to, and then what's that funnel down to? I think leadership, sales, then that funnels into relationships.
Yeah.
And without good relationships, we're not good for our families, our neighbors, our coworkers. So I think that relationships is such a general word, but it's such a deep word, but such a fine word, and such an important word. Relationships. I look at people with relationships that are horrible with their children. How sad, how sad. And relationships with maybe with their spouses and so forth. But relationships is the key word, and that is a whole topic in itself as far as how to develop relationships, how to keep them and so forth, and keep them alive and healthy.
Yeah. What I just heard you say, obviously, I believe in is that all sales, all leadership is based on healthy, authentic, vibrant relationships. Whether you're selling cars or widgets or trying to move your department forward or raise up great kids, it's all the same.
I sure think so. I think
Yeah.
that's where the life and the juicy life comes from, is juicy relationships. People we can call, hey, love you. Just you saw my granddaughter here. She said, "I love you, Dad,
Yeah.
Grandpa," three times that she
She sure
left there.
did.
And how wonderful is that to have
Yeah.
that kind of relationship with your grandchildren and or neighbors or your my cousin's next door to me. She never leaves here. Let's say, "Love you, Jerry." How
Yeah.
nice is that? Pretty special.
It was beautiful to watch your granddaughter Cece get everything set up for you and say that. Love you, Papa. I love you, Grand. I love that. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
you have been through rough times. This hasn't been just a seamless trajectory forward to success. How have you battled back from your own flaws or failures or economy, or how do you work through hard times?
I think that if you're going to be around for a certain amount of time in this earth, this wonderful earth, there's going to be some tough times that are going to come.
Yeah.
Business wise, I can remember the gas crunches when they were gas. We were worried if we could ever get gas again. So the prices were high, and they had gas lines in 1974, 1976, 1980. We had 20% interest rates, and we were paying those rates on cars that we were flooring or stocking and so forth. And that was a tough time. We
Yeah.
could only charge 12% of the customer for a retail rate. That's all that was allowed in this state at the time. Usually, but we've seen those times come. But I've always said that when tough times come, that's when we come awake. And I tell my kids and so forth out there and to say, see how that car, that's a 10-year-old, 12-year-old car, 15-year-old car, 4-year-old, that car's got to be traded in. Now, when they trade that car in, I'm going to be here. And I tell my employees that we're going to be here. We're going to be alive and we're going to be healthy. Some people have to have cars. They're going to be buying cars. Other people wreck cars, so they need another car. So anyway, I'd say that then it gets down to another whole subject, which is another wonderful subject called my A to Z here in life, attitude. The A to Z. First one is attitude,
Right.
and the attitude that we take. Now we used to have another dealer in our town that finally went out of business, but he would say, oh, he had coffee, he'd say, oh, the world's caving in. We can't get cars, or their interest rates are 20%. We're never going to sell a car again. Not all people finance cars. A lot of people pay cash for cars, or go get an equity line of their house, or their granddad gets it, or they got the money and so forth. But there's always a way to make it work, and I think that attitude is what we pass on to again to our home, our people at our home, our kids and so forth, wife, whatever, to make them comfortable. And I know my wife always said, Jerry, I never have to worry about money coming in from this household because you sold cars for 6 years, and you always say you could go back and sell cars again tomorrow morning and make a lot of money. So she said, I never had to worry. So that was nice that I could give her that comfort level.
Yeah.
But attitude, it's just, I think it just means so much when you talk about leadership, you talk about sales. Without a good attitude, we're done.
Right.
It's not going to work.
The
It's
other
not going
thing,
to work.
the other thing I got from that story is perspective. Now, it might be someone's listening to this and they say, well, it's easy. He's in his 80s to have perspective, but you've played the long game your whole life. You didn't just make today's sale. You were taught from day one, you were talking about next year's sale, 5 years sale. Where did that long game perspective come from? And how would you try to teach that to these young leaders that are just thinking about today?
That would come back right when I told her I was 10 years old. Like my mother, if she could be here, God bless her, she's in heaven now. But if she is here, said Jerry always had a goals. And I always have those goals all written down, just totally all nice and printed out goals. And there's goals from 10 years old, what kind of car I was going to have when I was 16 years old, and what I dreamed for and wanted for and saved for and so forth. So I think that goal setting is huge in our lives, goal setting.
Good.
Unfortunately, I watch people come into our dealerships daily and they say, get me done. What that means to say, get me done is I want that F350 and I got an F250 here, an F150, and I want that car. Now, what do I have to come with? Here's what I want, and so forth. And if you get me in that car and get me approved by credit, I'm going to have it. But they go often from a payment of $464 a month to $800, or now the average payment on an F250 is over $1,000 a month. And I've told many people, what are you doing that for? You got a perfect truck right here. Take that extra $600 a month or $400 a month extra if you're going to pay in payments, put that over 60 months, and you still got a nice truck here to drive. Just take care of it. But people live in today and a now
Yeah.
society. I want it now, and I want it now. Yeah. So,
So
but I
you're,
think the long game. You talk about the long
yeah,
game to me is goal setting. What do I want next year, and 5 years, and 10 years, and the end of my life, or when I'm older and retired, and so forth. And I think if somebody can keep that perspective and keep that in front of them all the time. But the goal is the goal, and
yeah,
they really step fast on the goal. It's going to work, and people can work. $200 a month for savings doesn't sound like a lot, but you do that thing over a period of days and months and years, and it adds up and so forth. And
sure.
I tell people, you own a home? Yeah, I own a home. We'll get it paid for. Instead of buying that truck for $800, I'm shooting myself in the
I
head.
know,
I
right?
say, because I sell cars. But I sell them often. But I say, if you got to have that car, let's buy it. But why not pay the house off? I've always felt if you get your house paid off, then your family is secure. They never have to worry where that house is there. It's one security blanket. So
there's no doubt that authenticity about don't I'm a car salesman, but don't buy this car because take care of your house first.
That's great.
That's got to build trust for people to say he's the man. He's not just trying to upsell me or sell me. He really cares about me
I've
as
done it. I've done it more too often to mention, but and often it works and often it doesn't.
yeah. Let's shine a light on Korum for Kids. We put on the shelf a few minutes ago. Shine a light on Korum for Kids, your foundation. How did that start? What's the passion there?
It's easy there to answer because I've given so much thought over my lifetime. But after becoming a Ford dealer at 25, 6 years old, I had great success and started some other dealerships. We started with Glenn Sawyer, Toyota Puyallup, with my brother Puyallup Datsun, with a brother-in-law, Puyallup Lincoln Mercury, and so forth. And so we were in Tacoma Dodge was another one that we owned for a while. My father and I, once I started selling cars for him, whereas one time I could not perform or wasn't a performer, all of a sudden we were best of friends. So we were the best of friends till he had a stroke at 56 years old on his birthday, and he never did walk again or talk again or drive again. But so we got a lot done in a few very short years. As I started selling those businesses off to our family members, then I had an extra amount of cash. And I would tell my wife, I'd say, I think what we need to do is start a foundation. So we started a Korum for Kids fund back in the 80s. And then the 1990s, we formalized our foundation and put a big chunk of money in there. And then that has been now run, like I said, for my with my daughter Sophia, her and I, and her husband John Hall, and my other daughter Sonia. And we run that foundation, and it's just given me just I can't begin the amount of joy. We took so much of our profits from our real estate. We took so much of our profits out of our businesses, and then that was on a monthly basis. So it grew pretty fast, and all those working years that I was working from then on, and then we'd have extra sales of properties or whatever, any big blocks of dollars that would come in, we'd put that money again into the foundation, and it's given me a lot of satisfaction. I think that a business owes the community what they derive their income and sales from. I think that they owe that community back a considerable gift. And to me, the gift to Pierce County and South King County and Thurston County, it's our trade area for selling Fords and Lincolns and Hyundais and the rest of the products that we've sold over the years. That has given, I think, our employees a great amount of satisfaction and pride, I should say. It's
Sure.
given my family a nice sense of pride, and it's given myself, as the founder of that foundation and of these dealerships, a great sense of pride in what we can do and should do and what we are doing for our community.
Yeah. You have the Melcorn YMCA after your family. You have after your late wife. You have a building at Farm 12 and Step by Step. You have Korum for Kids. The way that you give back is honorable, and I applaud you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's wrap up with this. So let's say I know your passion of giving back to young leaders. A 25-year-old, I was 29 when I met you. A 25-year-old is wanting to start his first business and company and launch on an entrepreneurship. Top piece of advice you want to give this young lady or this young guy, top piece of advice to get him or her started as a successful entrepreneur, what would you say?
I think it goes down just a few things. The first thing I would say is again, we talked about it earlier today, to take the time to step back and really think. What did you mention? What is the long game? I want to be in this thing for a long time. If I do, what's it going to look like in 5 years and 10 years? And what if it's going to look like when I come up to hard times, so forth? Can I sustain that, get through it? Business is tough. But again, I think that if you are playing the long game, you're going to have a certain amount of that profits are going to stay within the company, so that you are not going to have, when the tough times come, you get through them. That'd be number one. More than anything else, it's just take the time to step back and really think, really dream and think and dream about what could this really be? Is there other markets or every other facets of this particular business that I could grow from there? And when I was in high school, I worked for a man and a woman. Her father started the Seattle Times newspaper, the Bluffton family. And that's where I got my dreams, I think, of owning real estate. I thought if I could ever find a way to make money to buy real, that would make money, then I'd buy real estate. And I had a dream back there and working for her in those high school years. That was the biggest influence in my life. I think that anybody can look at themselves and their on their paper and write down who's the biggest influence on my life and lean into those people. He mentioned step by step down there in Puyallup, named after my wife, Jermaine Korum Center.
Yep.
The gal down there, most of us know her, Krista Linden, fabulous woman, just with a dream.
Amazing.
There's amazing. You know, she had a dream that you couldn't break with sledgehammers and a chainsaw, and she knew how to do it. I introduced her to Melanie Dressel, who was CEO of Columbia Bank, as a mentor of her. She mentored Krista. Melanie Dressel did up until the time she died, unfortunately, at a young age, while she was CEO of Columbia Bank. That meant the world to Krista. It set her in a whole different plateau as far as what she could do, would do in her life, is doing and going to do. She just getting started, and she's got an empire down there with her event center, with her flowers, with her kids that she ministers with young women, I should say, that are pregnant women that are unmarried and so forth. She had a dream. And how did she get that dream? So she had it by stopping, seeing different people, myself, Melanie, putting people to her and with her, kind of her silent board of directors or noisy board of directors, whatever you want to call it. But there's a woman that I think that has the ultimate in putting her dream together. Through thinking and planning and putting it all together.
Here's the three things I got out of that. So you're giving advice as 25-year-old entrepreneur. I got three things from that. One, take the time. I know that's a big thing for you. Take the time, write it out, think it out. Number two, surround yourself. I call them compounders or multipliers. Surround yourself with compounders or multipliers. And number three, I know you said this earlier, show up to work. Show up to work. Don't just show up to, how did you say it earlier? Work to work.
Come to work.
Come to work.
Come to work. And you take a look at a lot of people in our society, but I'm not going to point fingers, but a lot of people working from home. So I know people do that very effectively. I know people that are working from home that don't do it very effectively.
Right.
But come to work. In other words, looking to get what's the job, get the job done.
Okay. So think through everything, plan it out, dream big, surround yourself with compounders, come to work, roll up your sleeves and get your fanny to work. Jerry, thank you so much for your investment in me for 30 years. I love you. I love the impact you've had on my life and our community. Thank you for taking time with me today. My hope is that part of this conversation will spark other young leaders for the future and your legacy will continue. Thank you for your time, my friend.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
I've got this little book here called Drive.
Yep.
And I got 4,000 copies. So anybody listening to this, they can just look up Jerry Korum and call me at 253-279-3000. I'll be happy to send them a copy for nothing.
Love it. This is so like you. Love it. Thank you for your time, my friend. I wish you the best. I know you're finishing strong. You're living a great life. And again, I just thank you for your investment in me and others.
Well, thank you very much. I love you too.